This video will show you how to replace the radiator on a Pontiac Grand Prix. This will be located along the front of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. A quick note about doing this, we will have to make our way under the front of the vehicle to drain the cooling system. But we're starting up along the top under the hood. Along the passenger side of the radiator, this is where our radiator cap is. We're going to have to carefully open this. Never open it if the cooling system's hot to the touch. If you've just been running the vehicle, you need to let it cool down. It could be under pressure. We'll carefully take hold of the cap. We're going to turn it counterclockwise and we'll lift it up and away from our face. Just a quick inspection of that cap. Now I'm just going to rest it on top. Let's make our way under the front of the vehicle. As we make our way into the front of the vehicle, we can see the front corner of our subframe on the driver's side. We're making our way just in front of that along the back side lower corner of the radiator. This is where we can see our drain plug. Now I'm going to be using a 19mm. I'm going to turn this counterclockwise and we're waiting to see coolant drain out of the lower port underneath the radiator. All right, let's let that finish draining. Now, once your coolant finishes draining, we can go ahead and close that drain plug. 19mm for that. Right there's bottomed out. Just take it a tiny bit further. Let's make sure that that's secured in place. While we're still under the front corner of the vehicle, let's make sure we clean around the drain port. Use some parts cleaner, wipe it down. Let's make sure we clean any mess around this area so we can double check for leaks in the end. And now we'll make our way towards the center front. Now as we look in this area, we can see where our transmission cooler lines are attached to our fan shroud. We're going to have to pry these out of place. Obviously you want to be careful not to cause any damage to those lines. There's one, there's the other. Now in that same area where we just dislodged our lines from, we're looking along the bottom of our fan. We can see that we have a wiring harness going all the way over this and it's leading towards our fan motors. Most of this can be disconnected from up along the top, but this area down here is easiest from down along the bottom. I'm going to carefully pry this plastic portion out and away from my fan shroud. I want to be careful not to cause any damage. For this, I'm just using a long trim tool as a prying device. A thorough inspection of that. This looks good. Now at this point, let's pause under the vehicle and we can make our way up inside the engine compartment. Now looking from inside the engine compartment, we're looking straight down along the center of our cooling fan area. Down in this area, you can see where we had just dislodged our lower aspect of the wiring harness. We're going to continue on making our way towards the driver's side of the fan assembly first. We can use our trim tool to get the mounting point out of place. Now it's time for the electrical connector leading towards the driver's side fan motor. On this connector, you're going to find that you have a locking tab that would be facing down diagonally. You may find that it's difficult to gain access to that locking tab. I'm going to be using a pick. Just make my way directly under here. Pry it away and pull away on that wiring. There's our locking tab. I just pried it away. Easy peasy. Let's make our way over. Over here we have another mounting point. That looks good. On to the electrical connector. Now this electrical connector does have a locking tab as well. It's facing down diagonally towards the center. I'm going to use my small pick here. Try to slide it in there and pull this out of place. There's our locking tab, no corrosion. Now let's continue following this wiring harness towards the passenger side lower corner of the radiator. So you're going to have a mounting point all the way down at the lower corner, but we're actually going to start up along this upper corner. Once we have this pulled away, we can gain access down there a little easier. I'm using my same trim tool. So now that we have that upper clip done, we can make our way down to the next clip down in this area. I'm going to try using my trim tool. You can also use a pry bar, whatever's easiest for you. Now that I have that separated, we can continue on. At this point, let's reach down, we'll take hold of the wiring harness, and we're going to pull it all the way over towards the passenger side of the engine compartment, over by the battery, just to get it out of the way here. Along the front of the engine compartment, up along the top here, we have to remove each one of our 2 engine torque strut mounts. The process for one will be the exact same thing as the other. I'll show you on this one. To remove the engine torque strut, I'm going to start on the engine side where it connects to the bracket. We have a 15mm headed mounting bolt coming through from the outboard side towards the inboard side. Over here, a 15mm mounting nut. Now we can leave this bolt in temporarily. We want to leave it loose. Let's make our way to the next mounting bolt. Same process here, 15mm for each side. Okay. Now that I have that loose, I can remove this mounting bolt. We should be able to pivot this. Once you do have the pivoting motion here, we're continuing along the bracket side towards the body of the vehicle. Out in the open, you can see 2 13mm headed mounting bolts. Inside of each of these ports, you're going to have another 13mm headed mounting bolt. Let's remove all 4 of the bolts. Now we can pivot up on the torque strut again. We're going to slide this entire bracket away from the body of the vehicle. Just a quick inspection of this, and we'll set it aside. At this point, I'm going to do the exact same thing for the other engine torque strut. With both of those out of the way, looking along the driver's side of the fan shroud, we can see that we have another area where our wiring harness is held in place. It's easy to gain access to now. We'll pry that out. So we're looking along the passenger side of the engine compartment. We can see our radiator cap, our vehicle's battery, and down along the side of the radiator we have a transmission cooler line. We have to dislodge this cooler line. As far as this cooler line, you can see that we do have a black plastic cover. Pry that out of place. You can use a screwdriver, prying device, pretty much anything. Now after you've removed that, if you were to look closely at this fitting, you're going to find it has a groove all the way around. Inside of that groove, there's a small metal clip. We have to carefully dislodge the clip so we can slide the line out of place. I'm going to use some penetrant. As far as that metal clip, you can either use a transmission line removal tool or you can use a couple small picks. Whichever way you do it, just be careful not to lose that clip. That's what the transmission line removal tool would look like. Not everybody has one of these, so I'm going to continue on with a couple picks. Just making my way around the groove area here, I'm looking for the ends of the clip. These can be in pretty much any orientation. I did find one up along the top on mine, that's nice. Trying to get underneath this, pull it away. Of course, you can use multiple picks as necessary. That's what your clip should look like. If it looks like it's rotted, weak, or damaged in any way, you need to replace it. Now you may find that the line is stuck in place. Give it a wiggle and carefully pull it away from the radiator. You could find that there's fluid in this area. We have a collection receptacle under here. There we are. A thorough inspection of that line. There's no damage. Up along the radiator cap, we're going to remove our coolant overflow tube. On my application, I do have a wire tie. I'm going to cut that wire tie and slide the tube out of place. Let's set this aside nice and high. Looking straight down under the 2 areas that we just finished working at here, you have a 10mm mounting bolt holding the fan in place to the radiator. Let's remove that. For this mounting bolt, you may find that the wiring harness or the battery tray is in the way. My application, this bolt is fairly rusted. I just have to get my tool in place. Now while we're over here, if you were to look just below that, you're going to find that the fan does slide down inside of a hooked area on the radiator. We're not doing anything in this area right now. We're going to continue on with our hardware. I just want to point this out. Once we've removed all mounting bolts, we're going to be lifting the fan up and away from this lower mounting point. You have the same thing on either side of the fan assembly. Making our way up along the top of the fan assembly, we can see 3 pieces of hardware. We have one 10mm bolt here, which holds this bracket in place. We'll be removing the bracket as well. In the center, you're going to find that you have another 10 millimeter headed mounting bolt. This has a small plastic bracket which goes over the radiator and over towards the AC condenser. We'll be removing that plastic bracket as well. On the far side, towards the driver's side, we have the same thing as on the passenger side, a 10 millimeter bolt and a bracket. Let's start over here. There's that one. Now in the center here, I'm going to be removing my 10 millimeter bolt and the bracket. In my experience, I have found that these are typically rusted or rotted, and it may break. Now, as you can see on my application, the fan did break. I want to make sure that I can mount this properly, so I'm going to have to replace my fan assembly. As far as this bracket, we can slide it out of position. That went over the AC condenser. Here's where the radiator was. I'm going to have to remove this bolt, and we'll remove this small piece. For now, I'm just going to set it aside. All the way over towards the other side of the fan assembly here. We're on the driver's side now. 10 millimeter bolt for the bracket. Okay, it's loose. Remove that. Now at this point, we can move this around quite a bit. Up along the top of each side of the fan assembly, we're going to remove our metal brackets. Just lift them up and off of here. Now that we have that out of position, just go over to the other side, lift up that bracket, and remove it as well. After removing that bracket, we do have another mounting bolt down inside the driver's side corner of the fan assembly, holding it to the radiator. It's just the same as on the other side of the fan assembly. That mounting bolt is just underneath our upper radiator hose. 10 millimeter. There's that mounting bolt. Same as the other side. Now moving up from that area, along the driver's side, we're going to remove this crossover bracket. There's two 13 millimeter bolts along the front. As you make your way over towards the strut tower, you're going to find a third. Set that aside. Now with that cross beam out of the way, we're looking at our upper radiator hose. We have a squeezable clamp. This clamp can be in pretty much any orientation. We can see the two ears that I need to squeeze, and then I can pull the hose off of the radiator. After that, just a quick inspection, of course. I'll use some pliers. There's our hose. It's not cracked or damaged. There's our clamp. We'll just rest this back on the hose, and we can set all of this aside. Now let's take hold of the fan assembly. We're going to have to lift it up and away from its lower mounting points and pull it out of the vehicle. A quick inspection, and we'll set this aside. Now with the fan out of the way, we're looking down along the passenger side of the radiator. We have our lower radiator hose, and we have another transmission cooler line. Let's start with the radiator hose. There could still be coolant in this area, so make sure you have a collection receptacle under here. For the lower radiator hose, we have a squeezable clamp. I'm going to be using my extended hose pliers. Once you've dislodged the clamp, take hold of the hose. We'll give it a twist and attempt to break it free from the radiator. If you need to, you can use a hose pick. Just let that drain into the coolant receptacle. Now I do want to make sure that no more coolant comes out of this area leading down towards my transmission cooler line. We have to remove that next. I need to make sure no coolant makes its way inside of the transmission system. I'm just using a rolled up rag here. Now at this point I'm going to try to clean down any mess in this area so I can continue on with my lower transmission cooler line. Now for that transmission cooler line, go ahead and remove the plastic cover and then remove your metal clip. And now let's remove the metal clip. I'm just using my small angled pick. I'm attempting to try to find an area I can make my way under that clip. There we go. Now I'll take hold of the line, give it a wiggle, remove it from the radiator. There's that. The line looks good. Set it aside. All the way over on the driver's side of the radiator, down along the center, you have a 10 millimeter headed mounting bolt. This is holding a plastic bracket in place, which is attached to the AC lines. go ahead and remove that 10mm mounting bolt. Now with that bolt out of place, we can move this plastic bracket and our AC lines. Now continuing on, to be able to gain access for the rest of this removal process, we're going to be removing our air filter housing. For the air filter housing, I'm going to make my way to this hose first. We have a squeezable clamp. We'll slide this out of position. That hose looks good. Now we're making our way up here. We have a 7mm headed clamp. I've seen these before where they're 8mm headed clamps. Either way, use the tool you need. We're going to loosen the clamp just enough that we can slide this out of place. We're moving along to our mass airflow sensor electrical connector. It has a squeezable tab up along the top. We'll squeeze it in and disconnect it. No corrosion. After doing all that, we're making our way towards where the housings connect. We have two 8mm headed mounting bolts. These are fairly long. You can see the threaded portion protruding out through the far side there. Now, as far as these mounting bolts, sometimes you can't fully slide them out of position. As long as you can dislodge the two pieces from each other, that's really all that matters. Of course, we'll inspect the condition of the hardware as we continue on. Now we can separate this. We're going to take this portion, we'll lift it up and set it aside. Now as for the rest of this housing, we're going to have to carefully lift it up. Looking along the bottom, there's going to be two securing tabs that go down into rubber grommets. Take hold of the unit, carefully lift it up. That should pop out of place. And now we can set that aside. Now looking along where the air filter housing was, we can see our rubber grommet. We're heading towards the radiator. On the AC lines, there's a small plastic bracket. We have to dislodge this. Up along the top, it does have a couple locking ears. We're going to try to separate this. Down along the bottom, the two pieces just fit together. We can wiggle them and take them apart. I'm going to use a small pocket screwdriver. You can use a pick as well. Try to get under this area. There we are. Now once you have it separated on the top, the bottom should come apart as I mentioned. There's that plastic clip. Just a quick inspection of that. We'll set that aside. After dislodging that, we're going to carefully start lifting up on the AC condenser. We're looking along the side of the radiator. On each side of the radiator, there's small hooks. The AC condenser has tabs that protrude out and slide down in. So we're going to have to take hold of the AC condenser while holding the radiator. We'll lift the AC condenser up and out of all four hooks, two along each side of the radiator. Start over here. Now that I have that separated, I'm going over to the other side. Same process. Now with the AC condenser separated from the radiator, we can start removing the radiator. You may find that the radiator gets stuck in the lower mounting points. You just want to carefully tug it up and away from those lower rubber mounts. There we are. And we can remove it. There it is, friend. Once you have the radiator out of position, the next thing we have to do is pay attention down along the lower aspect. On either side, you're going to have one securing tab that comes down, and it should go into rubber mounts. Those rubber mounts should be in the body of the vehicle. This one, as you can tell, came out with the radiator. I'm going to remove it from the radiator and transfer it over to the body of the vehicle. Sometimes for these, you can take hold of them, twist them, and slide them out of position. Otherwise, like in this instance, you may have to tap it out of position. Let's just be careful not to cause any damage. A quick inspection of this. Let's get it over to the vehicle. So as we look down at the body of the vehicle, we can see the port where this rubber mount needs to slide into. We'll make sure we have it in the proper orientation. We have our small port facing up. Now it's time to install the radiator, but I always like to look down along the bottom at each one of my rubber mounts. You can see one over here, and of course we have one on the opposite side. Make sure they're both there and they're not damaged in any way. These look good. Okay friend, let's prepare to install our brand new radiator. Now as we come down, we want to make sure that our lower studs on the radiator fall into those rubber mounts down along the bottom. Obviously we don't need to fully press this in, we still have to be able to move the radiator around. We do just want to have them aligned. So as I flex this radiator, along the front of the radiator, as you remember, there's 4 hooks, 2 along the top, 2 along the bottom. The AC condenser has 4 tabs that protrude out towards the sides. Those tabs need to slide down inside of each one of the 4 hooks. 4 tabs, 4 hooks. This is what it's supposed to look like. Make sure all 4 tabs are seated properly inside all 4 hooked areas. Looking all the way down along the bottom of each side, we're confirming that we are properly secured inside of our rubber mounts. Aside from that, on the driver's side, lower corner of the radiator, we need to make sure that the drain plug is tight. We do not want any leaks from this area. This can loosen during shipping. That's tight. Now with your brand new radiator, it came with a set of 3 clips. Along the driver's side, there's 2 areas, 1 clip for each port. We're going to make sure that we have the threaded portion of our clip facing in towards the radiator. The smooth side should face out towards where the fan would sit. Line them up with the corresponding ports on the radiator and tap them into position. I'm just going to use a small hammer for this. Looking at this, you can tell it still has to go a little further here. Double check to make sure that the circular port is aligned the way that it needs to be. This looks good. We have our next clip, same process here, same orientation even. Make sure they're secure. Now we're going over to the other side of the radiator. On the other side of the radiator, we can see exactly where our metal clip is going to go. Same process for this one. We'll line it up, press it in. We're listening for an audible click from that. Attempt to pull it out of place. We need to make sure it cannot easily fall out of place. Once you're sure that it is secured, make sure you install your protective plastic cover. That'll help prevent that clip from falling out. To help set this into place, I'm using some pliers over the line. I'm not trying to hold the line. I just want to try to press up against my clip. Now I'm going to tap on this with a hammer. Now that I feel as though I have that in the proper positioning, I'm going to attempt to slide it out. I do need to confirm it is secured in place. We don't want this coming off while we're driving down the road. Now it's time for the lower radiator hose. We'll align that with the port for the radiator. We're pressing it onto the radiator as far as possible until it's bottomed out. After that, of course, we need to make sure we install our clamp. With these squeezable clamps, it's a good idea to install them into the same positioning as where you had removed them. No matter what you do, you need to make sure you can see hose on both sides of that clamp. I'll be using some pliers for this. I can see hose on both sides of that clamp. I'm attempting to remove the hose from the radiator. It does not slide out of place. We're along the driver's side of the radiator next. We have to secure our AC lines to the radiator. We have a plastic bracket. As you remember during the removal process, the bottom of the plastic bracket has to slide together, and then you roll the top in and latch it in. Of course, we will put this along the lines first. Slide that in there. So now the bottom of the bracket here, I'm just going to try to align it. It's fairly difficult to see. I'll swing that in. Press it together. Latch it down. Once you have that together, continue on with your 10mm headed mounting bolt. Once you have the bolt started in, go ahead and snug it up. Right there is bottomed out. We'll just take it a tiny bit further, make sure the lines are secured in place. Now it's time for the air filter housing. As you remember during the removal process, we have 2 rubber grommets down in this area. We need to make sure the housing fits down flush up against this and of course fits into these 2 small rubber grommets. Okay, pressing it forward. Press that down. Make sure it feels as though it's secured in place. Now we have the rest of the housing. As we look down along this portion of the housing, you can see that there are some small slots. As far as the rest of the housing, looking at that, making its way all the way down, you have some locating tabs. Those slide into those slots. Press it in. Now up along the top, we have the area for our 2 mounting bolts holding these together. One of my bolts did come out of place during the removal process, so I'm just going to reinstall that. We'll attempt to separate the 2 areas. They should not separate in any way. Up along the top of the housing, we have our hose. Slide this on there. We have a squeezable clamp. Let's get that in the original position. I can see hose on both sides, and it is secured. Now it's time for the air inlet tube. We'll slide this on as far as possible and tighten our clamp. Make sure that's secured as well. We have the electrical connector for our mass airflow sensor. Line it up, press it in. An audible click and a light tug. To make sure nothing falls inside of the radiator, I'm just going to rest my cap in place here. All right, let's get ready to install our cooling fan assembly. Looking along either side of the radiator, you can see exactly where our cooling fan will have to sit. We have small hooks along the lower area, and just above each one of the hooks on each side of the radiator, we have mounting bolt ports. Now once we have it down into this proper area, of course we want to make sure we look along each side of the radiator and fan assembly to confirm we're seated inside of the hooks on the radiator. We can align the ports for the mounting bolts, start them in, and snug them up. For now, I'm just going to double check both sides first. This side looks good. That's good as well. Now that I have that in place, I'm continuing on with my 10mm mounting bolt for each side of the fan assembly. Okay, that one's snug. I'm going over to the other side of the fan. I'm going to repeat that same process. Now I'm over on the passenger side. Once again, we're going to reattach our upper transmission cooler line. Press it in, listen for a click, and then of course we're going to make sure we protect that area and secure our clip with our plastic protective cover. There's our audible click. I'm attempting to slide it out of position. You need to make sure it cannot fall out. And now let's secure it in place. Now on this clip I do have to tap it in position, so I'm just going to use some pliers around it so I can hit up against both sides at the same time. Make sure that's secured in place. Now we're looking along the center of the fan assembly. I have replaced my fan, so I still have the upper bracket. In the center of this area of the fan, the AC condenser and the radiator, we need to install this plastic bracket. It slides over the AC condenser, inside the groove of the radiator, and now we need to gently flex this so we can slide it into position. We have our 10mm headed mounting bolt. Start it in, snug it up. Make sure the brackets around each one of the components properly. It's supposed to hold everything together. This looks good. Along each side of the upper corner of our fan assembly, we have this square tab. That's for our upper mounts. We're going to slide this down into position, and then we have to align the area for the hardware. Now there should be a small clip inside of here. As you can tell, this one is kind of a little bit loose, but as long as it does hold the bolt, that's really all I need. So I'm going to get this in position. I'm pressing it on. Now I'm going to align that port, start in my mounting bolt. Now that I have this side started in, I have the bracket and the bolt for the other side. I'm going to repeat this exact same process, and then we can tighten both sides. Now that they're both started in, we can tighten that hardware, 10mm bolt on each side, of course. This side is secured. I'm going to go over to the other side, repeat that process. Okay, that fan assembly is perfectly secured in place. Now it's time for our wiring harness. We need to secure that to our fan assembly. My plastic clip looks as though it's damaged. I'm going to try here, but as you can tell, it does fall out of place. I do want to make sure it's secured, so I'm going to be using a wire tie. Just going to go through that circular port. We'll go around our wiring harness. After confirming that that's secured in place, let's continue on to our upper radiator hose. That'll slide onto the upper port on the radiator. Of course, we do have a squeezable clamp, so I'm going to squeeze that while I slide this on. When we do have it installed, we need to make sure we can see hose on both sides of the clamp. Attempt to slide it out of place. That's secure. Now we have our crossbar here. As for the mounting hardware, the larger of the 3 mounting bolts is for the rearward side up along the strut tower. Down along the front, the 2 smaller 13mm headed mounting bolts. Once they're all started in, go ahead and snug them up. We'll make sure they're nice and tight. Along the passenger side of the radiator, under the fill port, this is where we have our transmission cooler line. We have our wiring harness. Now this fan wiring harness needs to go in between the fan and our transmission cooler line. Just carefully slide it through there. Obviously, you want to be careful not to cause any damage. Now at this point, this is going to go down along the passenger side of the fan. We're going to have to secure it, and then we're making our way down along the bottom, and of course making our way towards each one of our fan motors with the electrical connectors. Now we can secure that wiring harness. I'm starting up along the top on the passenger side. Line it up, press it in. There we are. Double check, make sure that's secured. Let's make our way down for the next one. Make our way down here. We have our plastic clip. Make sure that's secure. The center of the fan assembly here. Let's make sure we secure our transmission cooler lines. Press those in. Now we can continue on with our electrical wiring harness. Just towards the passenger side of our transmission cooler line bracket, we have our circular port. Let's make sure we secure the wiring harness into that port. That one's secure. Now we're coming up along the passenger side of the fan assembly. We're going to secure our wiring harness here, and then we have the area for our electrical connector. The locking tab on the electrical connector faces down diagonally. We're pressing it in. That one's secure. Let's make our way towards the driver's side of the fan assembly. Secure it down in that lower port. Electrical connector, locking tab. Once again, this is facing down diagonally. Audible click, and it's secure. Now moving up from there, along each side of the engine, we have to install our engine torque strut mount and the mounting bracket. Let's start with the bracket. We're bringing it into this area. With that in place, let's continue on to all 4 pieces of our hardware holding the bracket in place. For the upper bolts, typically you can just start those in by hand. For the bolts inside of each one of the circular ports, you may find that it's difficult to reach down inside of that area. Just a quick trick for you, you can use a small piece of rag or a piece of paper, bring it along the head of the bolt, slide it into your socket, that should hold it for you. They're all started in. Let's go ahead and snug them up. The torque for these is 21 foot-pounds. I've got my torque wrench. After securing the bracket, it's time for the rest of the torque strut mount. We're going to have to maneuver the engine forward or rearward as necessary so we can align the mounting bolt port. My mounting bolt is going to come through from the outside towards the inboard side. I'll rock the engine as necessary, just as I mentioned. We have our mounting nut. Now at this point, I'm going to snug up each one of my two pieces of hardware here, and then we're going to torque them to 37 foot-pounds. And my torque wrench. Now that I have this side torqued, I'm going over to the other side and installing that side torque mount and bracket as well. Same process there. Now I installed the other side torque mount, so I'm on the passenger side of the vehicle just underneath my radiator cap. We need to reinstall our coolant overflow tube. When you go to install this, just be aware if you go down too low, coolant may make its way out of that tube from inside of the reservoir. Going to wipe this down. Of course, you want to double check, make sure it's secured. I'm going to be using a wire tie. Now it's time to fill the cooling system. Remove the radiator cap. Now there's different ways to fill this. There's a specialty tool, or you can carefully use a funnel. I'm going to be using a funnel tool, so I'm using a small adapter inside of the port. This is going to act as the radiator cap. It should just screw right onto that radiator. Let's make sure there's no movement from that adapter. Now, since I don't want my funnel coming in at an angle, I'm just going to use this small angled portion. And now I can install the funnel. Now that I have the funnel in place, I'm going to be using the manufacturer's specified coolant. You can also use universal coolant. I'm going to be adding it into my funnel, and it'll start making its way down inside of the cooling system. At first, typically the fluid will make its way in and you're going to see air bubbles. Eventually, typically it's going to stop. At that point, you would want to start the vehicle. Let it run and get up to normal operating temperature. It's going to circulate the coolant throughout the entire cooling system and remove any air. We'll have to top off the fluid as necessary. After running the vehicle, you've heard the cooling fans turn on and it's up to normal operating temperature. It's time to remove the coolant fill funnel. So for this, we have our small plunger. We're going to go deep inside of that funnel area. We're going to press it down. That's going to restrict the coolant making its way out of the funnel so we don't spill. Of course, we do have a collection receptacle under this entire time. We'll set that aside for recycling. After removing that, we can take off the rest of the coolant funnel assembly here. Install your coolant cap. Make sure it's nice and tight. Clean any mess in this area. Now, with the vehicle running on a flat level surface at normal operating temperature, which it should be because we just checked the coolant, we need to check our transmission fluid. There's a dipstick along the backside of the engine compartment. We're going to pull this up and out of position. I'll give it a quick wipe and I'll show you what we're looking for. Looking at the transmission dipstick, right where my thumb is, we can see this small hatched area. We want to have the fluid level up near the top of that. If it's anywhere below the hatched area, you need to make sure you add some. Okay. Let's check that fluid level. Now, as you can tell on my application, the level is perfect. I didn't lose very much transmission fluid through this process. Add fluid as necessary. Assuming it looks good, go ahead and reinstall that dipstick. Okay, friend, we finished our job. Now at this point, we've already run the vehicle, we know our cooling fan turned on, and we've circulated all coolant throughout the system. Clean any mess, close the hood, and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.